right, everybody. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and of course, I'm joined as always with my co-host Darian Smith and Jimmy Marion. And guys, we've got a spring UAB football spring showcase to recap for you all. But before we do, this episode and all episodes of the Blazer Victory Podcast are brought to you by Cahaba Brewing Company. Guys, if you haven't made it out to Cahaba Brewing Company to the tap room, we've had a blast doing so many watch parties and hopefully doing so many watch parties in the future. Definitely check out their tap room. But if you cannot, go to a local supermarket and pick up a 6-pack of the Cahaba Blonde. I mean, the Cahaba Blonde speaks for itself. It's so smooth. And everybody I know, including myself and us three, we all enjoy the Cahaba Blonde. So definitely thank you to Cahaba Brewing for supporting the Blazer Victory Podcast. And if you make it down to the tap room, let them know that you heard about them on the Blazer Victory Podcast. And also, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? You get to see us right now. Yes, I know I need to shave. But you get to see all three of us on the Blazer Victory Podcast on the YouTube channel. That is at Blazer Pod. If you are listening to us now, whether it's Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, there will be a link in the show description for you to just click on, and you can instantly subscribe to make sure that you don't miss any future episodes of the Blazer Victory Podcast. But Darian, before we get into, because I know you were able to make it out to the spring showcase, before we get into discussing the game and what you saw, can you tell us like how the atmosphere was at the Legacy Pavilion? Because we have our, whether it's Legion Field back in the day, our Protective Stadium the last couple of years. Normally we have our UAB football spring games in a stadium, but can you tell the listeners what kind of vibe you got for having the spring showcase at the pavilion?
I think I would say that I liked it better than having it at the stadium. At the stadium, it's kind of like lifeless, and it's kind of is what it is. I like the vibe. They had the food trucks, and you had the snow cone truck, and you had all these things for your kids, and it was intimate. You had a lot of the players' family out there, and it was easy to start a conversation. I saw as soon as I walked in, I saw a couple of my former teammates. I was giving out hugs. As soon as I walked in, I'm really pretty close with Matt's wife, Angel. Matt McCants, the interim offensive line coach. Saw her, saw Matt's son, saw Angel's mom. We giving out hugs and catching up, and so it was just real intimate and refreshing in that sense. The only issue that I have is, like, most of the time if you come to practice, you're kind of on the sideline, coming out of the practice facility, so you're right there on the sideline with the players. Well, they kind of had it to where you was kind of the pillars that's holding up the whole pavilion. It's a couple of columns in a way, so it was hard to keep up with the action if you're on the side with the fans and the family, because as soon as somebody go 10 or 20 yards, it's a big ass column right here. So you're trying to move and it was hard to keep a good visual on everything. So it was hard to keep up. And the only downside to the intimacy was if you were really trying to keep up with the plays, exactly what was happening. I know a lot of people that's affiliated with UAB football, so every time I'm walking, I'm starting a new conversation, or I'm playing with a kid. My child is coming. I've missed 5 plays, just talking and catching up, just talking and trying to get my kids something, going to the food truck. You're gonna miss plays just talking, and just by visually, you can't keep up with it all. So I was trying to make a concerted effort to at least try to keep up with the main things, and especially the one group that when they went out there, I was able to keep up with the groupings. But just trying to remember highlight plays and everything, because there is no way, I don't care what you say, there's no way that you was going to keep up with it all. I mean, the players' own parents weren't able to keep up with it all. I was talking to half of them half the time, and, so it's like, all right, you make of it what you can. I think it's tweaks that can be made, but I love the intimacy, The recruits were mixed in with the family. I'm pretty sure they liked it as well. It was a cool, intimate family type of feel, and it was up close and personal. Like the players came afterwards and they was talking to the fans, talking to the family, and I think that accessibility was important for them, and just to see their loved ones, you can tell that they really appreciated that. It was a lot of smiles and stuff afterwards, and them having those conversations. So, and coming over and just talking with their family. So, overall, is it tweaks and adjustments that need to be made, that could be made? Maybe people can be more so toward the end zone so we're not blocked, but then you can't see the action on the other side. So maybe it just kind of is what it is when it come to that. But overall, I did like it better than the stadium. It gave more life to everything. It just wasn't kind of soulless.
Love it. And I'm curious to see, I know Trent Dilfer spoke on Mac and Q maybe about like doing this going forward in the future. So I'm curious to see like next year and years out, are they going to continue to have it at Legacy as opposed to having it at Protective? And maybe there's also a financial aspect, Protective, or UAB has to pay Protective for spring games, for security and whatnot. But before we get into discussing the actual game, Jimmy, I want to throw it to you because you brought up a really good point on our Patreon. Oh, and shout out patreon.com/blazerpod. Before the spring game, we had a very good discussions, plural, in regards to UAB football and what we wanted to see for the spring game and going forward, maybe into fall camp. So it's $5 a month. You get great insight. Hey, basketball recruiting, transfer portal, football transfer portal is about to open up soon. Definitely locked on our Patreon, patreon.com/blazerpod. It's just $5 a month. Gets you access to every exclusive episode, or you can prepay for a year and get a 10% off discount. But Jimmy, you brought up something that I wanted to bring up. Darian and I last year, we did the recap the UAB football spring game at Protective. And I know you had just some thoughts about re-listening to that recently and kind of applying it moving forward.
Yeah, first of all, I want to give you guys a quick shout out because if you look at the Blazer Victory page on YouTube and you look at the most listened to episode all time, it was the 2022 UAB football spring game recap. It had 491 views. Our San Diego State UAB preview is only 2 views behind that. So that one might break it. But what we learned, right, was
and that was without our faces too. Hey, or
exactly.
The spring game, yeah.
Exactly. It's just looking at the whatever you want to call it, the Blazer Victory logo, like on the screen when y'all got kicked off the field and all that good stuff. So hey, why don't we try to kick this up a notch? Why don't we try to get this 500 YouTube views talking about spring football? For those of you that couldn't make it, or even for those of you that did make it, but you got people that couldn't make it, where you're going to get this type of dialogue, if you will, as it relates to recapping the spring football. There's been some good stuff. There's been some really good stuff pushed out following the game, but where you're going to get this kind of discord as it relates to that content, you're not going to get it anywhere else than the Blazer Victory podcast. But yeah, I always like to just, y'all know me by now, you've been listening to me long enough. I like to look back, look forward, look at things like from the 50,000 foot view. And so last week I had re-listened to that episode, and I wanted to kind of just prepare myself because I wasn't able to attend last year and I wasn't able to attend this past Saturday. So someone just as an observer who's consuming this content was, are there any correlations from last year to this year? And before we talk about that, I just want to talk about some of the takeaways that was in that episode. So we had some positive things to say about the offensive line, about the linebackers, about the defense in general. And we know that ultimately that wasn't necessarily the case for the past football season. At the same time, there was an acknowledgement and there was discussion that the ones look good, but then there were some potential challenges associated with the depth of the football team. Some other things that we talked about was just shouting out a Ricky Lee or Everett Rusall, and those guys turned out to be absolutely exactly who y'all thought they were by just observing a spring football game, which I thought was really cool. Also, we only had 30 patrons back then. We're at 108 now, right, John?
Yes.
So going strong there. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting to kind of look to see. We had guys like Tuazama that was out there making plays. Eli Ritchie started at left guard. So like overall, it was just interesting to think, okay, well, what can you take away from a spring game? And how can you move it forward? And so I guess my question for Darian would be like, was there anything that you kind of learned from re-listening to last spring game to going to both spring games? Are there things that you think that still that you would correlate to potential success or failure of this upcoming season? Like, what were just your overall thoughts of kind of re-listen to yourself, or me having some notes shared from that episode, and then also having gone to the second spring game under the new coaching staff?
Yeah, so me personally, I didn't go back and re-listen to it, so I just listened to what you told me.
What?
What was said about it. But I do remember a lot of everything that was going on. So first of all, we got to remember the context around that spring game. It was Trent's first year, and a lot of people were down about the hire, right? Like a lot of people weren't even trying to give it a chance. Like, and it's crazy because he was just coming into a situation, like a brand new situation with so many guys graduating and
We're
so
not
many
even
toes
just
to
talking
fill.
locally, but we're talking nationally. Like
Nas-
nationally, like yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how many articles of polls, John, did we look at where it was just like the worst hire? It
Hey,
was
hey, we keep receipts, don't we, Jimmy?
That's right. I got screenshots. I'm still waiting. I got screenshots to release those.
yeah. So we got to remember just the whole negativeness surrounding that spring game. And so, for what it's worth, we lost like all of our offensive linemen, minus Wilson. He wasn't even a full-time starter then, right at center. We lost all of our linebackers. Like we were losing everything. Like and people was just trying to kill a coach that was just coming in. He was coming in from the high school ranks. I'm like, man, this we all knew it was gonna take time. Like us non-casual fans, like we knew that it was gonna take time to rebuild, no matter who the coach was, because we was losing so much to graduation, right? And at that time, we still had Jalen Key, and then we still had Drew Tuazama, right? We still had our two main stars on defense. Um, so with that being said, no, I don't believe the offensive line was good when we looked at it, but it was better than what we expected. No, the linebacking core was not as good. I can trust me. I remember being there. We was like, oh, yeah, I don't know about these linebackers, but we were happy to talk about the positive aspect in being Everett Rousseau. He was a true freshman. That's what we were going off of, the true freshman and stuff like that. And then so injuries happening, the portal happening, and then we already were worried about the depth. Yeah, if y'all remember, Skull was recovering from a knee injury at that time. A lot of it kind of was setting up to start off slow, right? We hadn't had the revelation of Iverson Hooks. We hadn't had the revelation of Amari Thomas. So a lot of things played out during the season. The offensive line got stable as the season went, stable enough to compete, right? But it took a couple of games. Uh, but the defense wasn't really never able to get back to stability. But if you lose your two stars with a young team already, and we lost Charlie Gould, he got hurt. He was starting at linebacker. He got hurt. We were grasping at straws, right? Like we were playing freshmen. Half of the freshmen they were playing, they weren't even there during the spring yet. So it was it we was trying to make the best of what we could at that time. And just like I'm pretty sure if we were trying to make the best of it, I'm pretty sure Trent and the coaching staff were too. They were putting out what they can in. And I understand it. This year I can be a lot more straightforward instead of trying to put more of a positive spin. I can be a lot more straightforward. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I sent the guys. I mean, here's some of the names that we talked about in the past year spring game: Eli Ritchie, Taven Curry, Desalen Worsham, Von Troy, Diamond, Tuazama, Key, Malaya, Collier, AJ Gates, etc., etc. Like that's just like another point that I found so interesting is like just we all know this to be true that the college landscape is crazy with the portal, but there's your evidence right there. Half the guys that we were recapping that were out there making plays, catching touchdowns, and getting the ball out of the backfield aren't even on the team, the next year. So just it changes like drastically. But I don't know, John. I don't know if you want to start diving into. We've kind of recapped last year. If you want to start talking about this spring game, I'm super interested to get Darian's thoughts there.
Right. Yeah. A lot of this episode is going to be Jimmy and I asking Darian questions. But before we go into that, just one last statement. Darian, it was so glad to hear that they did not cut the lights out on you this year's spring game. Like the last year when we had to go finish the episode in my car in a parking garage. So, I mean, hey,
we were committed. We were committed to it.
I was going to say, hey, maybe that's why we got 500 views for that episode, because people knew what we went through. So, hey, if we had to do that again to get 500 more, we'll do it again.
Gotta do what we gotta do.
Hey, gotta do what you gotta do. So I just wanted to start there. But seriously, Darian, my first question is, what did you see out of this defense? And I know, we've already talked about it's just a spring game. You can't overreact to it. But Jimmy just earlier mentioned how it correlated from last year's spring game to last year's season. But what did you see, if anything, different out of the defense out of that one spring game that you attended?
Yeah, so I want to preface this by saying that I can tell that the staff is being very conservative to make sure that we at least go into fall healthy. So with that being said, we didn't have Kevin Penn out there. We didn't have OC Brothers out there. We didn't have Charlie Good out there. We didn't have Ricky Lee out there. I don't remember seeing Trey Miles out there. We still waiting on other guys to come in the fall. So a good portion of our depth, and I'm still feel like I'm missing guys. So a good portion of our depth wasn't there, but thankfully we haven't heard any kind of like season-ending injury or anything like that. And I bet they were just kind of nicked up on the offensive side. No Jacobs, no Amari Goodwin, no Iverson Hooks. It was a couple of guys. No Darius Morgan, no Trey Badowski. It was a couple of guys that I can keep on going, but we didn't go. We went without those guys. But at this time last year, Zaire Flournoy, he was out. We had a couple of injuries. Skull, it took him to like the third or fourth game to really get back to being Skull. So it's so many other injuries that we avoided by just making at least going into fall that we can go in with a full deck. So with that, I'm happy about. So, and then secondly, the first thing that kind of popped out with me, just with those guys missing, those all our guys that are expected to contribute a lot this year. I can't say that we look the vibes were good. So, just talking to players, right? Just talking, not even necessarily players, just everybody. Let me just say everybody. It kind of confirmed the theory or the things that we heard, that it was kind of two groups in a sense. You expect that. You had success under Bill Clark. You had success at the highest level. So now you got this new coach coming in, and it kind of was a fracture there. That's the best way to put it. And it's to be expected, right? So now everybody is on one page. So that is important. I want people to realize how important it is. If you're gonna have one group after a loss and be like, man, the coach, they telling me to do it, like this ain't right, like probably should have transferred. And then you got the other group just trying to buy in, and I think it was butting heads a lot as the season went on. That doesn't help if you're losing. It's gonna get worse. This year, I can tell you, I made sure to talk to different people all around, and everybody was like, "Oh, we having a winning season. Like, we are winning. Like, we are together. Like, just off the field." And I think that is so important. And secondly, as a group, and I know we'll get in on individuals, but just as a group, just as a team, they look faster, stronger, more aggressive. And like I said, we'll get into more group play. It just seemed more confident in what they're asked to do in the scheme. overall. Even with all of those depth pieces out, it looked deeper than they were last year, right? Like it just looked more comfortable, and it was more satisfying competition to watch. Like it was more running downhill and filling in the gaps and some pads banging. It just went like, oh, blown coverage, where you weren't even where you're supposed to be. It was more woo, shouting, hollering, let's meet and let's play football versus let's figure out football.
Well, Darian, let's start down for the defensive line. I mean, obviously, reading Steve's article on the Behan Banner, yeah, and also Evan Dudley, great job with AL.com. But looks like they were able to get to Jacob Zeno 5 times. Is that what I recall? Like, what was the defensive line like? Did they impress you? The first unit, the ones out of that scrimmage, did you come away impressed?
Yeah, the ones definitely impressed me, man. So and then the way they were rotating, it was more so like a 1A, 1B type of thing, right? You can kind of tell like this is the group that we're gonna go with, even though Kevin Penn was missing in that group. But man, my man Iman Smalls, Emmanuel Waller, Tyler Thomas, like Desmond Little, Ladarius Cox. I'm gonna start with Ladarius Cox and Iman Smalls in the middle. I can tell like Smalls and Waller and Tyler Thomas, you can tell how much work they put in on their body. So like and I know I just said I'm gonna start in the middle, but Emmanuel Waller has transformed his body. Like you come in, you're a true freshman, you kind of got that true freshman weight on you. You're not as now you look at I'm like, dang, like you look like a unit. Like you see the muscles, like you can tell, like, oh, you've been putting in work. Iman Smalls, he looks scary out there. Like, I'm like, dude, like, and just to see like the way that Iman Smalls and Ladarius Cox really controlled the middle and how aggressive they were. It was a couple of times. So stats won't pick that up, but it was a couple times those guys was in the backfield fast. And like I said, I wasn't able to keep up with every play, but I was trying to keep up, especially when certain guys were out there. And one of the sacks, I saw Tyler Thomas and I saw Emmanuel Waller just get around the edge. And it was like, oh, just giving up a sack. It was like, nah, I'm whooping butt to get this sack. And just very aggressive. So to me, I don't remember seeing that. I maybe saw that from Tuazama or something last year, but I don't remember seeing that much. Just that dynamic, that twitchiness off the edge, that speed, the power, and stuff like that. I talked to Brian Turner. BT was like a star defensive end. So his thing is he was pleased with the ones, but he want to see that one player just stand out and take it and say, I'm that guy. And so in his eyes, he was pleased with the ones, but he didn't see that. He didn't see that one guy take over yet. What I'm saying is we definitely have the guys to do it. Like the D-line looked way better than they did last year. Just to keep it all simple as a group, from at least right now, they looked a lot more stronger, physical, faster as a unit. And I'm pleased with the ones, man. Ezra Odenajor got in there and was making plays. Desmond Little was making some sacks. Trying to think about all the guys. I was really impressed. I was just really impressed with that whole unit as to how they work together. I felt like we had holes last year. I feel like those holes can be more covered up this year. I did come away worried about, we talking about the ones, but I did come away worried about the depth, and we'll talk about it more because the 2D line got destroyed. Like it wasn't close. But I mean, we had guys like Hal Mosley out there, freshmen. We had Miles Cook. We had a lot of freshmen out there, and we have more depth on the offensive line because they redshirted. More guys redshirted. So, and I guess Gerlins Milford, I was looking for him. They got him on the roster as 91. I wonder if it was a 94 out there. He wasn't on the roster. I wonder if that was Milford.
Maybe him. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was the one guys that we had, and it was about 6 or 7 of them rotating. They look good, and I came away encouraged.
Was it ones versus ones, or
yes.
Okay.
Yes, for the most part. And then they switched it up a little bit toward the end. As far as on the offensive line, so about the 5 sacks, I didn't see all 5 sacks. But I can tell you that you see that number and you come away, you kind of scared about the offensive line. Like, oh, I can tell you like 2 or 3 of them I saw was I felt like Jacob held the ball long. Like he had enough time to at least get rid of the ball. So they don't tell you if they're coverage sacks or not. And I think a good bit of them were coverage sacks. Some of them was Emmanuel Waller getting back there, putting some spin rip moves and getting to the quarterback and celebrating. And I was just happy to see the competition. It wasn't like a guy just got visibly super whooped. It was competition and it was work to get there. Like if you just beat the offensive lineman, you did that. So it wasn't Trey Moore UTSA type of whoopings. If that's what you're looking for.
Hey, Trey Moore's about to start probably for Texas now. Before it's coming out of there. So, hey, that dude is a beast.
I still have nightmares and flashbacks of him. So, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Me too. But Darren, I guess transitioning, you talk about the coverage sacks, kind of transitioning to the secondary. Did you see pretty good coverage out of the secondary?
Yeah, for what it's worth, you kind of was able to see what you could see. Especially with the ones, I feel like the one defense, if we talking about the ones, I feel like the one defense overall won the battle. You still see those flash plays like Amari Thomas. He has it, our skill guys, we're deep. Like we're super deep because if we transition to the twos and you got guys like Corey Milliner and you got like Cam Shanks out there, they obviously cannot run with the twos, bro. Like it was kind of to that point, like, hey man, we gotta find a way.
We gotta find a way to get them out there.
They gotta run with the ones. Like those guys were getting the ball. If they weren't catching a long pass, they was taking a short pass and visibly just pulling off from everybody. And they were doing that multiple times. I'm like, hey, at this point, just don't let them. Because I mean, they obviously, I don't know if they're getting better from even being out here with them. They gotta run with the ones, but. TJ Jones, we got Amari Thomas and Brandon Buckhalter, just pulling off from guys, I'm like, yeah, we got to have the good on good because I felt like the good on good, I felt like we had some guys from the twos skill-wise that really separated themselves, but it was good seeing guys like A.J. Brown, number 20 to safety. It was good seeing him. I saw him make a good play at safety. It was good seeing Adrian Maddox and chatting with his dad. He looks exactly what Steve wrote. He looks the part. It looked good seeing guys like Ike Rowell, who rotated in there with the ones, and he looked better than he did last year. He looked better too. Like, it was just good seeing guys like Michael Moore and Rousseau. They are exactly what we think they are, right? So
real quick, Aaron,
the ones
Michael Moore. You just brought up Michael Moore. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you brought up Michael Moore. I didn't realize, according to Steve's article, he was nicked up pretty much the whole spring, and to still see him out there and playing well, that's good because that's going to be somebody that UAB needs on this defense to step up. Michael Moore, He could be that guy that BT was talking. We need just somebody to step up and make plays.
Yeah, and that's another guy. That was his first year starting at linebacker. He didn't start at middle linebacker last year. He was on the edge. He was at Sam. He was rushing the quarterback until like game 3 or 4, and we moved him to linebacker. He's finally fully comfortable in that role. Every Rousseau rotated in. It was Jackson Bratton, and it was a couple different guys, but he rotated in. Now it's his. He looks good in that 6 too. He's wearing number 6 now. So now we have guys more comfortable in the scheme. Now we have more depth behind those guys. I know some of that depth still has to develop more. I feel like guys like Eddie Tusom, he's got the size and everything. I feel like he still was figuring it out. A couple times I saw him trailing behind plays a little too often versus being aggressive and making the plays. Like you see Michael Moore and you see Rousseau, they playing downhill. Even Jax Van Zant, I saw him playing a lot more downhill. He was number 16. He looked a lot more comfortable. You can tell some guys are still getting used to it. And to Tusum's defense, he plays a lot of different roles. You see him in a lot of different places out there. And it takes the spring and adjusting to a new team. But he has the tools. You can see it, the size and the speed he has. You just hopefully over the summer, during the fall, it all click together. And I'm ready to see guys like OC Brothers out there and Charlie Gould, see what they have. That's going to be important depth for that middle linebacker spot going forward.
Hey, well, I know eventually we're going to switch over to like those really important groups like quarterback and receiver and talk about the dynamic playmakers. But before we do that, Darren, I wanted to get your thoughts on kickoffs. Were you able to see any kickoffs get into the end zone?
No. No, I did not. I did not see that part.
Dang, okay.
I did see the kicker. It was number 19. I can't think of his name. But I did see him knock down almost all of his field goals, and all of his extra points. So that was good. But, and this is not only on the kicker. This is a specialist thing in general. I'm pretty sure the staff is aware. The average I was seeing the kicks go to was about the 8.
Okay.
I would like to see kicks.
Just got to get 8 more yards, man. Come on, get that thing in the end zone, please.
Like
please.
8 to 10, from the 8 to the 10. I was just like, no, that's not what I was specifically. I would stop talking to go look. I'll be in the middle of a conversation. I'm like, oh, let's kick off. Let me see what's going on here.
Would you have gotten in the bouncy house, Darian, if we would have got we would have kicked one in the end zone?
Well, I would have did whatever they wanted me to do. We would have had the majority going into the end zone. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's something that's going to be addressed coming up in the fall, where there's more competition and it's available, more guys come in. It ain't like it's something that you got to scout for too bad. Yeah. You just, hey, a guy that can kick it far. Again, shout out to the kicker. I can't think of his name. Is it Delange? Is that him?
That
number 19.
Right. Yeah.
Shout out to him. He made all his extra points. He made most of his field goals. At least that part, I was like, okay, he can kick it. He probably just leg strength on kickoffs is probably just not his strong suit. So hopefully we can find another specialist that can at least do that part. But no, I'm not down on that kid at all. The kid, he did his thing. You get a kicker to kick field goals for the most part, and he did that part good.
Did you have any other questions about defense, John? Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about quarterback, Darren, because speaking of that episode from last year, I mean, we were walking into a season in which Dylan Hopkins had transferred out. Zeno was presuming the full-time starter role, if you will. Landry Liddy had only been on campus for a few months and gone through a few weeks of practice. And so there was some uncertainty about that transition from a veteran quarterback to a guy who's going to be taking the reins for the first time. And then I'm looking through the statistics from the spring showcase from this past weekend. Zeno 15 of 21 for about 150 yards. He had a rushing score, which I think they shared a highlight of. 1 pick. Liddy was called out as being impressive, 5 of 5 for 148 yards, 2 scores. Campbell 5 of 7, 88 yards, 2 scores. Posse 2 for 2 for 11 yards. There's a lot of completions on that, which is no surprise to us as we saw how high the completion rate was for Zeno this past year. But I would envision, not speaking for you, but I would envision as you look back to last year where we were, and then you think about where we are from the quarterback position coming into this season, is just complete night and day from a confidence standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's a give and take when it comes to that, because like even with the two group, and Ricky Lee isn't one player, but it was no Ricky Lee, it was no Trey Miles out there. And Kitna didn't. I think he was able to throw in the beginning, but he didn't participate in the scrimmage. But listen, when you have Corey Milliner and Cam Shanks and Buck Halter and B.J. Hawkins was also out there with the two group. When you have those guys going out there and you already kind of short on depth, at corner and at safety, but so a lot of the guys that they were going to were kind of like guys like they were going against were, I don't want to say it to make it seem demeaning, but like young guys or, non-scholarship guys, guys trying to work their way up the depth chart. I mean, I did see guys like Naheem Bashir, I believe is his name. He made a play or two out there, but for the most part, dog, it was no contest. Like they couldn't hold him. So for what it's worth, I mean, if you got guys that's open, you throw it to them, and they were putting it on the money to them. But it wasn't too many contested. Like the guys they were too fast, man. The routes they were getting open. So I don't know how much stock to put into it, but for what it's worth, they put it on the money when they were supposed to put it on the money. It was money every time. So it is what it is.
Well, I was going to say though, Darren, would you say that that's a question and lack of depth for the secondary, or was it just Shanks and those guys just making plays and just making it look easy, or maybe a little of both? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was both. You do come away with like, hey man, I know this is the two group, but we do need to get some stops because they was getting torched, and it was like they was getting torched on run plays too, So it's kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Like I want to see more competition, but it just looked like dominance. With the ones, it was way more competition when it came to that, and again, it seemed more so like a 1A 1B type of thing. They were mixing and matching guys. And then, that two groups were more like kind of two, some threes, maybe some fours. And then, like, even with that depth, right, we got two corners or two or three corners. But I think three of them, they're freshmen, but they aren't on campus yet, And then, so you take away, that's three guys already. And then no Ricky Lee and no Trey Miles. It's like five guys to that group that you don't have, just that corner, right? So, for what it's worth, I believe the 1A corners, they did hold themselves up really well, and the 1A safeties or 1B or however you want to label it. But I think we're really, 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 really deep at receiver. So when you have that much talent at receiver, and I mean something's got to give, and that defense they gave. So yeah.
Darren, I got a question. For me, it's hard to like visualize, but also kind of understand when we talk about and we referenced it earlier, the offensive line, the ones giving up 5 sacks. I don't think we talked about Bracey. Shout out to Chris Bracey. If we didn't mention his name because he had a pick on Zeno as well as a sack. One of those 5 sacks was his. But I guess where I struggle, and it may be hard for any of us to answer, is like, is that a kudos to the development? And like, yeah, we have guys like we talked about with Waller and Cox and others, Tyler Thomas, that have just gotten better? Or is that still like a concern about where we are from offensive line? Like I struggle because it's UAB versus UAB. Like, is this a good sign for the offensive line? So just from like the offensive line perspective, which we know is your, amongst other things, like your specialty, having played the position, what were just your overall thoughts, offensive line? Like to me, just as a bystander, like that sounds concerning. Hey, 5 sacks with the ones, like that without context can be misrepresented. So like, I guess my question for you is like, where's your head at confidence wise with where this UAB offensive line is as we sit here in April of 2024?
Yeah. And that was the hardest thing to keep up with, right? Like when you trying to get visual and you're moving around and you're talking to people, and then so the hardest part, the hardest positioning group and all of that to keep up with is the offensive line, because it's easy to just say a sack, right? It's easy. You don't have to keep up with anything or any context to say a sack. But was it a cover sack? You can't help it if you done held your guys for 5-6 seconds and the quarterback is just kind of holding on to the ball looking. So it was hard to judge. It was easy for the defensive line to pop off because they were better. And I mean, it was just obviously better than last year. I'm gonna just keep it a book. But what was that in relation to our offensive line? From what I can say is it was competition. Like from the plays that I was able to make out, it wasn't like we were just getting our butt whooped. I go back to that UTSA. I go back to Tulane. In games like that, we were just getting our butt whooped that game. I did not see that, just from that standpoint of it. Like, so I don't have the best context as I wanted to because I wasn't able to keep up with it all. But from a competition standpoint, we looked ready to play, if you ask me, and we were missing some guys, but I think we're good on a competition standpoint.
How do you think things look procedure-wise? Were you seeing any false starts, pre-snap penalties, anything like that from the offensive line? That's a good
Nah,
sign.
it was
Good.
minimum flags, if any. I didn't even know we were throwing flags until I think the two group had got one. But
That's good.
nah, it was good, clean football. It was no, shout out to Matt. He did a good job. Hopefully he's able to keep that job. And they shared the interim tag. But nah, I mean it was good, clean football. You didn't see pass interferences. You didn't see any pre-snap penalties that killed us. You didn't see all of that stuff. It was just good, clean football, and some guys got whooped. That's all.
Was it last year? I mean, we didn't really know what to expect at all with the first year coaching staff, but were you able to see, just having watched a full year of this Trent Dilfer and Alex Mortensen offense, I'm sure that it was a lot easier to like visualize like what this offense is going to look like and where playmakers are going to fit. Because I know last year, having re-listened to you guys again, like it seemed like there was a lot of runs and it was a lot of passes to the backfield and like it wasn't anything. Was it super vanilla? Or what were just your kind of thoughts on like, did you see anything that you thought was interesting or was it kind of more of the same?
Nah, I didn't really see anything that was, different. I saw Buckhalter take a reverse like he
Yeah.
did. I think it was the FAU or USF, one of those two. I saw him take a reverse
Yeah.
and outhouse it. He's fast as ever. I did see them creative when they tried to get guys the ball. Like, I saw a couple of screens to like Jamoy Mays.
Yeah, we didn't talk about him. Yeah, did you see him do much of anything? I know we had pretty high hopes from him coming from Chattanooga.
Yeah, I saw him. I saw him get different packages. They were moving him around, having guys in motion. I saw him out there with Cam Shanks. I saw him catch the ball a couple times. I probably saw him catch it like 2 or 3 times. I thought he was bigger. He's more of a shiftier guy, right?
Yeah.
He has some ability. He can catch it and he can get shifty. I didn't get to see him break too many times. I saw him catch a screen and the defense was on him quick. Like, he got hot, he got popped. I think I saw him catch like a slant or something over the middle for like a first down. He looks like another piece to this offense. What I can expect from this offense is like, even if it's an injury or two, I don't expect us to slow down. Like I expect this now. Now that's when we add in the 5 sacks portion. And like I said, I saw the competition. If our offensive line is better and is more improved, like I think they are, I think we should be in line to have one of the top offenses in AAC in the AAC based on our skill players and our quarterback and our running backs. And we had so many that was hurt, today. I mean, not today, but during the spring game. If our offensive line can do a good job, a decent job, yeah. We just got too many weapons. It's too many. And I believe in all of these guys, man. We already know Amari Thomas, right? TJ Jones, Malachi Hope Bennett, Jamoy Mays, Iverson Hooks. Like, it's Cam Shanks. It's Corey Milliner.
It's
Too
wild.
many guys, and they all can play, and they all can take it to the house. That's the part I was impressed by. It's like the team speed on offense. Got a lot of speed. So I expect this to be, so a couple of. I do expect this. I expect a lot of more. I ain't gonna even say a lot. I expect more big plays, like big chunk plays.
That was my next question. Who is going to be? Oh, yeah, we don't. Who's going to be the deep threat guy? Losing Tejon Palmer from obviously what he was, especially the deep threat. Like, who do you see? Did you come away saying like, okay, that's going to be our guy, or did you come away like, we're still trying to find that deep threat wide receiver?
And so the part that I came away with is they're all good, and they all are fast for the most part. Like, so it's kind of like, hey, just throw it to whoever is open. And I think the best thing is like, I think I saw Trent make a quote about like those competitive plays, like those good on good one-on-ones where an inch is the difference. Like Amari Thomas comes down with those balls, a lot. So if we're talking about those plays, we can do that. But as far as the offense in general, we got so many guys, I really don't even care to find. I know under the Bill Clark era, it was kind of like you had Xavier Bosi, who was going to be your lone, your big play threat guy.
Hey, screw it. Shrop somewhere.
Yeah, throw it down there, Shrop down there. This offense isn't set up like that. I think this offense is set up like, okay, you're gonna put resources here. We can just throw it over here. This guy's going to take you. Okay, we're gonna do it. So I love the way this offense is set up because it's kind of like it's gonna pick at whatever weakness you have. We can take advantage of it. So that's how I feel. I wanted to say shout out to our guy, freshman tackle Barry Walker, 74. He looked good out there. I remember stopping talking to Tim Stevens. I'm 74. I'm like, who that? I was like, oh, that's true. That's Barry. I think he was out there at right tackle. Him and Jordan Hall 60. So they were on that two offensive line that were dominating. Delano Townsend. I was like, oh man, those guys look good. Jordan Hall body has transformed. He's lost so much weight. He looks so much leaner. Barry Walker looks like a dude. Adrian Posse was over there with his dad. Adrian Posse looked like a freaking man. Like he's like, I remember walking. It was like, who's this big ass quarterback right here? But yeah, he looks like a dude. I think the overall size of the team, not just like height and weight, but as far as in like getting off of the bus size, like, you know what I'm talking about? When you get off the bus and be like, damn, this dude look like he lifting weights. Oh, he been look like he lift. Oh, he looks like he lift. Oh man, like they got some dudes that been training. We look a lot better.
We beat Arkansas now. We beat Arkansas.
We look a lot better when it comes to getting off the bus, right? Like guys been lifting weights and but yeah, I wanted to say shout out to Barry Walker. We had a couple freshmen out there, Miles Cook, Kyle Mosley. We had a couple of guys out there, young guys that were out there doing their thing, and we had a couple of walk-ons like Jason Rouse. Players like that, they impressed me. Like I felt like he had a good day. A couple of guys like that I was like, that came out of nowhere. I was like, all right, you can probably work your way up. Connor Harvey, I believe, like a receiver tight end guy. He made a good contested hands catch there. Everybody was like, ooh, so yeah, we look good out there.
Hey, you mentioned Arkansas. I want to help us with these YouTube views real quick. John Calipari to Arkansas. John Calipari to Arkansas. Who replaced John Calipari at Kentucky? University of Kentucky basketball. John Calipari. San Diego State basketball.
Hey, did you see the domino effect right there from caused by UAB?
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
okay.
Beating SMU and causing their yeah. Woo.
Yeah, hey, it's UAB's fault that John Calipari went to Arkansas. That's crazy.
Oh man. Well, guys, we are 50 minutes into this thing.
we said we're gonna try to keep it at like 36 minutes.
Hey, great discussion though. So hey, everything's good. I love talking ball with you guys, especially Darren. You getting out there, getting to meet our listeners again. Talking with them. Getting to meet with the families of the players. It's all about what we are about, Blazer Victory, community. That's why we do the watch parties at Cahaba, to relate to everybody. So just great discussion of the team too. So,
John, I did want to wrap up and end it with as what I had started it with. And I think that's the most important part. These guys, you can talk to how many you want to talk to. These guys are like all in on the team this year, and they are all in on winning. They are confident about it. And you can ask them like, so is it a vibes thing or is it a talent thing? They say, oh, the vibes are way better because they're more together. Just because you would think they are. I've heard them personally say great things about differ as a person, not just as a coach, but being real and authentic with them as a person. And they agree. They said they believe they are much deeper talent-wise. And they'll tell you, like, a lot of those guys that were redshirted, they've stepped up. The players will tell you that. And when they talk about it, it's not like I feel like last year was kind of like, well, we going to see. It's kind of, they like, nah. I know I talked with one of the guys I talked with Bryce Davis. He was kind of like, I ain't going out without a win this season. He was like, I'm gonna promise you that I ain't come back here just to not win, right? So when you hear stuff like that, it gives you as a fan, it gives you a lot of confidence. Like, dang, all of y'all are talking with this type of edge to you, not because of what I want to hear, but because of the work that's been put in and how comfortable y'all feel. So at the end of the day, all the stats and everything that happened at the spring game, can't see some plays, some plays being made, whatever. That's what I came away with more impressed with, is that they like, nah, we good. And talking to some of the parents was like, oh yeah, we've loved it. Adrian Maddox's dad was so happy that he came to Birmingham, right? And that he talked about his time here, and he talked about how he's loved it since he's been here. To me, that's the most important part, and that's the things you can carry forward with you.
I love it. Jimmy, you're on mute.
I feel bad for Temple. I feel bad for Temple. I got distracted, by the way. I was looking at the On3 transfer portal. Like, I'm getting ready just to talk about Patreon or whatever. And I'm like, oh, they got somebody that's projected to come to UAB. Well, it's a punter. It says enter Jaron Van Winkle from Clay, Alabama is projected.
Oh, hell yeah. Rip Van Winkle, bring him in. Let's go.
We got some Van Winkle. He's going to be number 37. Our real ones know what that reference is.
Let's go, Patreon.com.
Oh, hey, I was gonna say, I feel bad for Temple. Like, not only did we steal Adrian Maddox, but we also just whooped that Temple Owl ass in the AAC game. So they took some massive L's this year, and we beat him at Protective.
Let's go, baby.
They're gonna have to take some more L's, man.
That's right.
Well, hey, let's continue this momentum for spring and the summer workouts for UAB football and the fall camp. Fire breathers only. Jimmy, send us out.
Hold on.
Nation.
Jimmy, hey, Jimmy, if things do go south, don't recount this.
Hey, we're throwing this thing away.
Hey, yes.
Yeah, we're gonna be throwing away this episode. We're gonna be talking about the next year. Everything's gonna be cool. Hey, but speaking of listening, before I throw us out, like, transfer portal opens up 1 week from today. College football. Like, we're gonna be talking about prioritization, like needs, like guys exiting, recruiting, guys were coming in. So John mentioned on the front end, but subscribe to the Patreon. It's $5 a month, and this is where we really start to heat up and you really start to get some good content. Not that we don't have good content all the time, but this is for y'all crazy sickos out there that want to hear about, who's following who on Twitter and all that stuff, and who likes someone's post. For y'all sickos out there, we're just getting started. Blazer Nation,
the third string tackle that's
third string
going
tackle
into the recruitment.
Who's going to be able to come in and play just really dynamite stuff. So Blazer Nation, just blaze.